All right, here we go. Miles is going to tell us about surprising turns. Let's hear it from Miles.
Thank you. Oh, can everyone hear me? Good, right, great to be back. No, yay, right, this is a lathe. It is an ancient machine tool, dates back to the ancient Egyptians. You can see over on the right here, there is this rotating spindle which securely grasps a workpiece here, which is brass, and then you have a cutting tool which removes material from the workpiece. Here you can see the operator is holding it in their hands. For metal, more likely you'd have it clamped in some sort of clamp, which is then moved on slides using screws. These days, increasingly under computer control. Lathes are used to cut parts with circular symmetry. Over on the right, you can see some parts in metal and wood that I've personally made with lathes. So, yay, that's exciting. The jewel of a lathe is a tool called a mill. Now, a lathe has a rotating workpiece and a linearly moving cutting tool. A mill has a rotating cutting tool and a linearly moving workpiece. So you can see on the table here moves on these screws. And the invention of really accurate metal lathes and mills in the early 19th century was one of the major things that kicked off the second industrial revolution. It allowed us to make interchangeable screws, interchangeable parts in general. Nowadays, these are still used industrially, either to make parts directly or to make the tools and dies that are then used for metal stamping or drop forging or injection molding. Or these are the tools that make the modern world. So around about 1890, someone thought, what if I take a mill and a lathe and put them together? This diagram's not very clear, I'm afraid, but you have two spindles, both rotating in the same direction. On the left, you have the workpiece spindle, and on the right, you have two cutting tools which are spinning in the same direction, geared together at a multiple of the speed of the workpiece spindle. So just have a think, what kind of part do you think you could make like that? Okay, who had polygons? So, yeah, when I saw this, I was completely shocked. Like, how do you get a flat face out of two counter-rotating circles? This is just mind-blowing. So, obviously, I had to make a scale model of it and bring it to MathsJam and do a live demo. As you can tell, that didn't happen. How do I activate this little button? Thank you. So yeah, it's the name of the game in machining is rigidity. It's kind of hard to get the necessary rigidity in Lego. And pro tip, when you find yourself saying, this would probably be safer if I used razor blades, then you should take a step back. So, that would also work, wouldn't it? Stop, help. Next slide. Yeah, so while I still had working fingers, I wrote some code instead. And what I'm doing in this code is I'm taking the movement of the cutting tool and I'm translating it into the reference frame of the workpiece, and then that allows you to see the shape of the final object that is produced. So let's just try it with the cutting tool rotating at twice the speed of the workpiece and just one cutter for simplicity. Yeah, that's an ellipse. So when I saw this, I genuinely thought I'd made a coding error, because there is nothing flat in this. Clearly something's gone wrong. But, let's just try it with two cutters, which is typically how you'd set one of these things up. Oh, that's interesting. So we've got something polygonal here, but it's not flat, it's just close to flat. And in fact, it turns out this is what this process does. It doesn't produce perfectly flat parts. It produces gently curved parts. And by making the radius of the cutting tool large with respect to the workpiece, we can make it arbitrarily close to flat. And machining is all about working within a tolerance, so this is fine. So how many sides do you get on this? Let's try bumping the gear. Let's try bumping the number of cutters up to 3, which is another common setup. Okay, great. We get this slightly convex hex. Brilliant. So it kind of looks like the number of cutters times the gear ratio maybe gives us the number of sides. Yeah, that's looking good. Slightly concave hex here. Let's bump the gear ratio up to 5. Oh, that's interesting. Now, I think I've seen this curve before. And so have you, if you've played with one of these. It's a toy called a spirograph. You have a circle, you have a gear wheel, within it another gear wheel rotates, and then you trace out the path of a point within the second gear wheel. and spirographs trace out a family of curves called hypertrochoids. I did not do this, this animation, by the way. I stole it from Wikipedia. That is literally a description of how a spirograph works. With a bit of algebra, you can show a polygonal lathe cuts out exactly a hypertrochoid curve. Hypertrochoid curves are part of a larger class of curves called roulette curves, including cycloids and involute curves, which are incredibly important in machining, but I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miles. An excellent attempt on MathsJam bingo, I think, with the coding and stuff. But I would also like to thank Miles on behalf of Katie's blood pressure for not actually bringing any serious equipment to math.